On November 14, 2018, bidders from 43 countries gathered, some in the room, some on the phone, some watching from screens across the world, all of them waiting for a single wooden chest to be opened. Not metaphorically, a literal wooden chest. One that had been packed in secret in the middle of the night by a queen who knew she was running out of time. Inside that chest, diamonds, rubies, pearls, wrapped carefully in cotton, piece by piece, by a woman who would be dead within 2 years. She never saw those jewels again. But here's what makes this story almost impossible to believe. Those jewels didn't just survive. They disappeared into private vaults for over 2 centuries, passed through the hands of royal families across Europe, and then, on one extraordinary evening in Geneva, they came back. And when the gavel finally fell, the world watched auction history get rewritten. That is where we begin. But it is not where we end, because Sotheby's Geneva has been the stage for some of the most astonishing royal jewellery sales ever recorded. Napoleon's hatpin, Wallis Simpson's jewelled diary. Romanov diamonds smuggled out of a revolutionary palace wrapped in old newspaper. Each piece a witness to abdications, forbidden love, exile, and survival. Today, we're going inside those sales. The pieces, the prices, and the human stories that made them worth so much more than any gemstone could ever be on its own. The queen who packed her own jewels. Let's go back to March of 1791. Revolutionary violence was closing in on the Tuileries Palace in Paris. Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, a woman who had spent her life surrounded by the most extraordinary jewels in Europe, spent an entire night doing something no one would have expected of her. She packed. Alone, or nearly so, she wrapped every diamond, every ruby, every pearl she possessed in cotton and placed them carefully into a wooden chest. She was not saving them for herself. She was trying to save something, anything, for her children. The chest was sent to Brussels under the care of Count Mercy d'Argenteau, one of her most trusted allies, then forwarded to Vienna and the safekeeping of the Austrian Emperor. Marie Antoinette was executed on October 16, 1793. She never saw those jewels again. Her only surviving child, Marie-Thérèse, known as Madame Royale, was released from prison at just 17 years old in 1795. Eventually, she received the jewels in Vienna. And from that moment, they passed quietly through the Bourbon-Parma family for generations, meticulously catalogued, carefully preserved. Archduchess Marie Anne of Austria created detailed handwritten inventories in 1907 and 1932, noting provenance, occasions, who gave each piece. Those notes, often tucked inside the jewel boxes themselves, proved essential to Sotheby's authentication more than a century later. Persuading the more than 120 descendants scattered across Europe to agree to sell took nearly a decade of negotiation. Think about that, a decade, to bring a queen's jewels back into the light. When the sale finally happened, royal jewels from the Bourbon-Parma family, November 14, 2018, the result stunned the art world. 100 lots, every single one sold. Total, 53.5 million Swiss francs, more than 7 times the pre-sale estimate. It eclipsed the previous record for royal jewellery at auction, a record that had stood since 1987. But the piece that stopped the room, the piece that stopped the world, was Lot 100. Marie Antoinette's natural pearl and diamond pendant. A slightly baroque, drop-shaped natural pearl, measuring approximately 26 by 18 millimeters, suspended from a diamond bow motif. It had originally hung from the Queen's own 3-strand pearl necklace. Pre-sale estimate, 1 to 2 million Swiss francs. After 14 minutes of bidding, 14 minutes, it sold for 36,427,000 Swiss francs, $36 million, a world record for a natural pearl at auction. roughly 36 times the low estimate. The buyer was Austrian collector Heidi Horton. The pendant later appeared at the Victoria and Albert Museum's Marie Antoinette style exhibition in November 2025. But I want to tell you about another piece from that same sale, because I think it reveals something even more moving about this queen. A small gold ring, bearing the initials MA in diamonds. And beneath those initials, woven carefully inside the ring, a lock of Marie Antoinette's own hair. It was estimated at 8,000 to 12,000 Swiss francs. It sold for 447,000 Swiss francs, 50 times its estimate. Sotheby's journalist Vivian Becker, who was there that evening, wrote afterward, "I touched history and felt the poignant thrill of its romance as I tried on the ring." That is what these pieces do. They are not simply gemstones. They are the closest thing we have to touching the hands of the women who wore them. The love story written in diamonds. Now I want to take you to a very different kind of story. Not a queen executed by revolution, but a woman who was denied a royal title, lived in exile, and yet accumulated one of the most extraordinary jewelry collections the 20th century had ever seen. April 2nd, 1987, Sotheby's Geneva. A vast candy-striped marquee erected on the shore of Lake Geneva. Roughly 1,000 bidders, 300 journalists, 600 more watching on closed-circuit television at Sotheby's, New York. A BBC documentary on the collection drew 12.9 million British viewers. Sotheby's expert John Block called it simply the most important jewellery auction ever to take place. 306 lots, 214 jewellery pieces plus personal effects, belonging to Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor, the woman for whom a king gave up his throne. The total, approximately $50.3 million, 7 times the $7 million pre-sale estimate. A world record for a single-owner jewellery collection, shattered in a single evening. You know the outline of the story. Edward, Prince of Wales, met the twice-divorced American Wallis Warfield Simpson in 1931. He ascended the throne as Edward VIII in January 1936. He reigned for just 325 days before abdicating on December 10, 1936, declaring in his famous radio broadcast, "I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility without the help and support of the woman I love." Denied the title Royal Highness for Wallis, the couple lived in exile in France. And Edward, who had given up everything, gave her jewels, constantly, obsessively. Diarist Sir Henry Channon wrote at the time, "The king must give her new jewels every day. He worships her. Cartiers are resetting magnificent, indeed fabulous jewels for Wallis." What makes this collection unlike any other is that it functioned as a diary. Nearly every piece carried personal inscriptions, private dates, and the couple's cipher "we", a pun on their combined initials, and a quiet declaration that they were, always, a unit. Let me tell you about a few of these pieces. The Cartier Gem Set Cross Bracelet. 9 jewelled Latin crosses, each engraved on the reverse with a private milestone. One reads, "Our marriage cross Wallis, the 3rd of June, 37 David." Another commemorates an assassination attempt on the king. "God save the king for Wallis, June 16th, 36. The earliest cross, dated November 25th, 1934, reads simply, "We are two," a witty, tender declaration of unity. This bracelet appeared in press photographs from the scandalous 1936 Narlin cruise, publicly exposing their relationship for the first time. It resold at Sotheby's London in 2010 for £601,250. The Cartier Flamingo brooch, made in 1940, a spectacular platinum flamingo standing on one hinged leg, its body set with diamonds, its tail plumage ablaze with 42 calibre-cut rubies, 42 emeralds, and 42 sapphires. Designed by Jeanne Toussaint and Peter Le Marchand, it was a birthday gift from the Duke. Several of Wallis's own jewels were dismantled to supply the stones. And here is the detail I find most quietly touching. The Duke insisted the leg be hinged so the pin would not dig into Wallis's chest if she bent down. That instruction is preserved in Cartier's archives alongside the original design sketch. It was first worn at the Ritz Hotel in Madrid on June 23, 1940, as the couple fled France ahead of the Nazi invasion. It resold at Sotheby's London in 2010 for £1,721,250. The Cartier Panther bracelet, 1952. A fully articulated three-dimensional panther in platinum, set with approximately 15 to 16 carats of diamonds and calibre-cut black onyx with marquise emerald eyes, designed to wrap gently around the wrist in a stalking pose. Purchased in 1987 for $1.27 million, it resold at Sotheby's London in November 2010 for £4,521,250. Then the highest price ever paid for a bracelet at auction. And then there is the Prince of Wales feathers brooch, given to Wallis in 1935. 3 pavé-set diamond feathers gathered beneath a crown, the heraldic emblem of the Prince of Wales himself, given as a symbol of his royal identity and his devotion to her. Elizabeth Taylor purchased it at the 1987 sale for over $623,000, calling it the first important jewel I've ever bought myself. Her motivation, she said, was sentimental. Richard Burton was Welsh. After Taylor's death in 2011, it sold at Christie's for $1,314,500. Edward had wished, after Wallis's death, that the entire collection be dismantled, that no other woman would ever wear those pieces. That wish was ignored, and the resulting sale transformed the global jewelry auction market forever. Diamonds wrapped in newspaper. Now we move to a story that reads less like an auction catalogue and more like a spy novel. Russia, 1917. Revolution. Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna, known as the Queen of St. Petersburg, wife of Grand Duke Vladimir and aunt of Tsar Nicholas II, had amassed one of the most spectacular jewelry collections in the entire empire. Those jewels were inside the 360-room Vladimir Palace on the Neva embankment when the revolution erupted. Her son, Grand Duke Boris, enlisted a British antiques dealer and diplomatic courier named Albert Henry Stopford to retrieve them. Dressed in workman's clothes, Stopford entered the as-yet unlooted palace, dismantled 244 pieces, wrapped them in old newspapers and loaded them into plain bags. He then embarked on a 10-day journey across Scandinavia, through Sweden and Scotland, arriving in London by boat on September 26, 1917. The jewels were deposited in a bank vault. Among them was the Vladimir tiara, later purchased by Queen Mary and now one of the most frequently worn tiaras in the British Crown collection. But the story of Maria Pavlovna's jewels does not end there. In 2009, researchers at the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs made a discovery that had been sitting, quite literally, in the archives for 90 years. 2 striped linen pillowcases. In November 1918, with Bolshevik forces closing in, Maria Pavlovna had stuffed a collection of personal treasures into these pillowcases and delivered them to the Swedish legation in Petrograd. She died in 1920 without telling anyone they were there. The pillowcases, still bearing the inscription in ink, appartient à sa imp/la Grande Duchesse/Vladimir, contained 110 objects, bejeweled cigarette cases, Fabergé pieces, Grand Ducal cufflinks adorned with precious stones. On November 30, 2009, every single lot sold at Sotheby's London. All but one exceeded their high estimates. Maria Pavlovna's sapphire brooch and ear clips, featuring a magnificent 26.80-carat Ceylon sapphire by imperial jeweler Sophia Schwann of the House of Boleyn, resurfaced at Sotheby's Geneva in 2009 and again in November 2021, where the set sold for 806,500 Swiss francs, nearly double the high estimate. The pieces came in a Cartier case stamped with the Greek royal crown, reflecting their passage through Maria Pavlovna's daughter Elena, who married Prince Nicholas of Greece. Each piece a chapter, each sale a resurrection. Napoleon's hatpin and the battle he lost. I want to pause here and tell you about a piece that on the surface sounds almost modest, and yet sold for 30 times its estimate in a 10-minute bidding war. November 12, 2025, Sotheby's Geneva. A circular diamond brooch, roughly the size of a poker chip. A 13.04-carat oval old mine-cut diamond ringed by nearly 100 smaller diamonds in silver and gold. Estimated at 120,000 to 200,000 Swiss francs. It hammered at 3,527,000 Swiss francs, approximately $4.38 million. Created around 1810, likely by Napoleon's crown jeweler, it was designed as a hat ornament for the emperor's iconic bicorn hat. 4 tiny holes on the reverse still mark where the original pin mechanism once attached. Napoleon carried it to the Battle of Waterloo on June 18, 1815. When the combined forces of Wellington and Blucher shattered his army, Napoleon's baggage train became stuck in the mud near the village of Geneva. He fled on horseback, abandoning 2 carriages loaded with personal treasures, including this diamond-studded hatpin. 3 days later, Prussian soldiers presented the brooch to King Friedrich Wilhelm III of Prussia, who wrote that he would keep it as a curiosity and a permanent souvenir with the crown jewels. For over 210 years, the piece remained in the Hohenzollern family's treasure room, catalogued under the endearingly humble label, Emperor Napoleon's hat button. It had never once appeared at public auction until that November evening in Geneva. And there is one more detail that makes this story almost unbearably human. Napoleon had travelled to Waterloo carrying a 300,000-franc diamond necklace given to him by his sister Pauline Borghese during his exile on Elba, a gesture of unwavering loyalty from his most devoted sibling. He also brought diamonds gifted the night before by his brother Joseph. The emperor went to his final battle surrounded by tokens of family love, and lost them all in the mud. What makes these pieces worth so much? By now you may be asking yourself, what is it exactly that makes a pearl pendant worth $36 million, or a hat pin worth 30 times its estimate? Sotheby's expert Daniela Machetti answered that question after the Bourbon-Parma sale with remarkable clarity. Tonight, we saw the Marie Antoinette factor work its magic. No other queen is more famous for her love of jewels. Provenance. That is the word. The documented history of who owned a piece, who wore it, what they were doing when they wore it. Provenance routinely multiplies value by 10 to 50 times over the intrinsic worth of the gemstone itself. Marie Antoinette's pearl pendant, intrinsically worth a fraction of its sale price, brought $36.2 million on provenance alone. Her hair ring sold for 50 times its estimate. Napoleon's hatpin commanded $4.38 million because of Waterloo. These are not simply beautiful objects. They are physical witnesses to the moments that shaped Europe. And Sotheby's Geneva has, over decades, become the world's stage for bringing them back into the light. The house pioneered a dedicated Noble Jewels sale category in 2007. Since 2023, it has run a standalone annual Royal and Noble Jewels sale in Geneva each November. The 2025 edition marked the 3rd consecutive white glove sale, meaning every single lot found a buyer, totaling $14.3 million, the highest since the standalone format launched. Across its history, Sotheby's has sold over 2,000 noble jewels for more than $300 million combined. And hidden collections are still emerging from European bank vaults. The next chapter, as Sotheby's itself has noted, is likely already locked away somewhere, waiting to be discovered. What strikes me, sitting with all of these stories together, is the thread that runs through every single one of them. A queen packing her jewels in cotton in the middle of the night, hoping her children would one day hold them. A king giving up his crown and spending the rest of his life writing love letters in diamonds. A British antiques dealer walking into a revolutionary palace in workman's clothes, wrapping imperial treasures in newspaper and carrying them to safety across a continent. A woman stuffing pillowcases with her most precious possessions and leaving them in an archive, where they sat, undiscovered, for 90 years. These pieces survived because someone at some point decided they were worth saving, and every time the gavel falls in Geneva, that decision is honored again. I want to know, which of these stories moved you most? Was it Marie Antoinette's pearl, packed in cotton for children she was desperate to protect? Wallis Simpson's flamingo brooch, worn while fleeing the Nazis? Or the pillowcases that sat in a Swedish archive for nearly a century, waiting to be found? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you found yourself leaning in during this video, if you felt that pull of history, that sense of touching something real, then this channel was made for you. There are more stories like this one waiting. Hit the like button if this one stayed with you, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because the vaults of Europe are still full of secrets, and we are just getting started.